So in topic 10, we also have total costing, where we look at the overall price of things. So we have two categories here. We've talked about total landed costs, where that's where when you order something, the cost of that all the way until it gets to where you want it to be. That could be your warehouse, could be another warehouse, could be the customer. All those costs are associated with a landing cost. And now we have the total cost of ownership. So this is all the other expenses in addition to the landed costs. So here's some major categories of our total cost of ownership components. So we have our pre-transaction, we're identifying our need, investigating our sources, qualifying those sources, and so on. And also our contracting process. Well, how are we going to get that? Now, then we have our transaction costs. So the price, how, our order placement, delivery, any dues or tariffs that we have to pay, inspections, returns, all that kind of stuff falls under transaction costs. And then we have our post-transaction components. So we have our line fallout, defective finished goods, rejected before sales, field failures, customer goodwill, reputation, effects, cost of repair parts, disposal of it when we're done with it. All these costs are associated with it, are associated with total cost of ownership. So we first need to identify the relevant costs here. So what is a real acquisition cost? It's much more than just the price. You have the price, you have shipping, is there an installation? Is it a piece of equipment that you need to install somewhere? Well, you have to pay the company that's installing it, or you got to pay your own people to put it in. Then you got to test it and all this other stuff, right? That could be one of your costs. So the year-to-year operating costs, maintenance, insurance, electricity, whatever costs are associated with running that piece of equipment or using that service or anything like that. All those costs need to be associated too. And then finally, the end of life for these items or services. What do you need to do to get rid of it? If it's a piece of equipment, can you just put it out on the curb and have the garbage truck take it? Or do you need to try to remove it and salvage it, or sell it back to the manufacturer, sell it on to another company, and then ship it somewhere? What do you have to do? All these things need to be factored in. So we got to define the timing of these costs, because obviously you might need some maintenance on, let's say it's a piece of equipment, you need some maintenance on that, right? Well, what about, do you need maintenance right when it's installed? You probably need somebody there to make sure it's functioning properly. But when's the next maintenance? Is it the next one in 2 years? Or is it the next one in 3 months? So we have to look at all these extra costs that are associated with it. Is there a piece that needs to be replaced every so often? Think about a printer that you might be using. It runs out of ink and toner, right? Based on the manufacturer's provided information, that you can maybe get 100 prints out of an ink cartridge, or 500 out of a toner cartridge. Well, now every 500 prints, which might be every month, every 2 months, every 3 months for you, you need to buy more ink or more toner. So we need to make a plan for that. And then acquire those materials, operate, and dispose. So all of this is in there because we need that equipment or that printer or whatever it is to operate as we intended. That's why we bought it, right? So, but we also have to look at the net present value. So if you look at all the present values of current and future costs and benefits. So if you look at, let's say you bought a piece of equipment, it cost you $1 million. But then over the next 3 years, you got to pay somebody $10,000 to do maintenance on it once every year. Well, now that piece of equipment costs you $1,300,000, right? But what benefits are you getting out of it? Is that piece of equipment giving you $10 million worth of product? So you can calculate the net present value based on this stuff. And there's a formula on the website to see how to calculate this. So let's do an example here. So a new reality show featuring street dancers competing for $1 million prize just started airing on TV. As a result, boomboxes are now in big demand. As an electronics buyer for a big box retailer, your boss has asked you to find the right supplier for these boomboxes. Your boss said, and by right, I mean we want to earn a high margin so we can profit from this fad. And we don't want to be stuck with inventory when the street dancing falls out of favor. You locate a supplier in Brazil called Brazil Boom that seems to be able to meet your boss's requirements. Brazil Boom has quoted you a price of $42 per boombox, a price 30% lower than your next best option. Is Brazil Boom the right supplier for you? Well, let's look into it. So we need to do our first step here. Relevant costs for buying boomboxes from a Brazilian supplier. Well, how long does it, we have our cost of transportation here. So to get it from Brazil to the port of Los Angeles, it's $4,750 per container. Then there's customs fees. That's going to be 3% of the value of the container. You're going to have duties, also known as tariffs. That's going to be 5% of the value of the container. Then the port's got to handle that container, move it around, put it on a truck, take it off the boat, all that kind of stuff. So they're going to charge you $1,750 for that per container. Insurance. If anything happens, it's good to have insurance, right? There's probably thousands of dollars of product in there. So to insure it, it's going to cost you $600 per container. So transportation from the port to your warehouse, $1,200 per container. All right, having a third party palletize it, move it, and storage costs, they're going to charge you $25 per pallet, which is about 240 cubes per pallet. So cubic feet. So quality control costs for inspection. So you're going to spend $5 per boombox to inspect it. So that's a lot of numbers to work with. Now we just need to know a couple things, right? How many boomboxes and how many pallets and how many containers, because everything is based on those. So here we have the value of the container. So the container itself is worth $33,600. We already know that the transportation is going to cost us $4,750. Customs fees. So we knew that was going to be 3% of our value of the container. So that's going to be $1,008. And then our duties fees, we knew that was going to be 5% of our value of the container. So $1,680. Support handling, flat fee of $1,750. Insurance, flat fee of $600 per container. And then $1,200 to take it from the port to the warehouse. And then you're going to have a third party palletize it and make sure it's there. And then so that's going to be $250. Remember, that was $25 per pallet. So we can now know it's $10. There's 10 pallets. And then we have quality control and inspection, $4,000. Remember, that was $5 a unit. So what does that come out to? So total cost of the container, total landed costs, is $48,838. So each boombox, the cost of it is $61.05. So some questions to ask yourself when you're doing this. Are you sure you accounted for everything? Did you account for all the relevant costs? Is your analysis robust? Meaning, can it be applied again if you did this all over again? Can you repeat your results? And what can you do to reduce your total costs? I mean, our example said it was 30% cheaper to use a Brazilian company. Well, could we remove some of those costs if we used a domestic company? I mean, we wouldn't need transportation to the port. Here's $4,000, right? $4,750. What about from the port to a warehouse? That was another $1,200, right? So all these costs could be cut out depending on where you source your materials from. So those are some of your possibilities to reduce your total costs. So when you're doing total costing, you need to think of everything and do some what ifs in your own head. What if you did this? What if you did that? What if you went with company A versus B? And if you do all that, you should have a pretty good cost estimation for your total expenses on the product.